Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take all those sources you send us, articles, notes, discussions, and really pull them apart to find the core insights.
Yeah, we do the reading so you get the highlights fast, hopefully with some useful takeaways.
Exactly. And today we're unpacking your material on budget travel. We've got stuff here on finding affordable spots, scoring cheap flights, and crucially, how to eat well without breaking the bank on the road.
hmm The goal is basically to give you a shortcut, using your sources, to make travel feel, well, less expensive and more doable. Practical tips, maybe some surprising finds.
Absolutely. So let's jump in. Where do we start? Finding the right place.
Makes sense. That's the foundation, right?
Yeah.
One source makes a really strong point about Europe. We often think expensive, but it argues Europe's incredibly diverse, offering, really affordable, less touristy options alongside the famous pricey ones.
That's a great point. People hear Europe and think like London or Paris prices immediately. But your sources flagged places like Sofia, Bulgaria.
Right. Described as having this really welcoming vibe, amazing architecture, and crucially, affordable food and shopping. Sounds like a genuine alternative.
It really does. And then there was Aveiro in Portugal. Porto.
Yeah, Aveiro. Described as this charming little town, canals, colorful buildings, those unique mall of sailboats.
Yeah.
A perfect, less crowded day trip from a bigger city like Porto, it seems.
And I loved the anecdote in your notes about Murcia, Spain.
Oh, yeah.
No airport right there, apparently. You take a bus.
Yeah.
And this traveler, well, the waitress was so impressed they tried speaking Spanish, she actually drove them to the airport herself.
Wow, that's amazing.
Right. Beats a taxi fare.
Right.
And it just speaks to that local hospitality you find sometimes. The source mentioned, no big tourist queues, just locals at the market, the cathedral.
That Murcia story, it kind of perfectly illustrates a theme from the sources, doesn't it? Budget travel often gets better when you step just slightly off that main tourist highway.
Yeah, you save money and you get these, more authentic moments.
Exactly. The sources also mentioned Kotor, Montenegro. Made a pretty bold claim, actually.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Called it the best view seen in Europe. Specifically from the hike up the old city walls overlooking the bay. High praise.
Best view. Definitely noted. What else? Sibiu, Romania came up.
Mm-hmm. Peaceful, charming, hearty, affordable food, even in winter, apparently. And Riga, Latvia, known for its quirky Art Nouveau buildings, especially on one street, Albert Street.
Oh, cool.
And cheap food at the central market there, too. Also Anzio, Italy, near Rome. Sounded like it took a bit of effort to find a restaurant that wasn't just for tourists, but they eventually found an authentic local spot.
So persistence pays off sometimes.
It seems so. Now, shifting globally, that Reddit thread you shared was fascinating. A real mix of opinions on the cheapest places.
Right. What really jumped out was how much cheap depends on, timing and currency rates. It's not fixed.
Absolutely. Very subjective. But some places kept coming up as generally budget-friendly. Armenia was one.
Oh, yeah, the $10 dinner for 3 store.
Exactly. Vietnam, Cambodia. Someone mentioned $3 a night accommodation in Siem Reap, which sounds almost unbelievable.
$3, wow.
Laos, the Philippines, parts of China, India. Though India had mixed comments, right? Some saying it's incredibly cheap locally, others noting good value in higher-end hotels compared to the West, but also some concerns about hygiene in the real budget options.
Yeah, that range is interesting. What else?
Morocco popped up, Eastern Europe generally, with Hungary singled out as maybe the cheapest in Central Europe, and parts of South America, Colombia, Argentina, mostly due to favorable exchange rates right now.
Okay. And on the other side, the expensive list.
Fewer surprises there. Switzerland, hotels described as exorbitant.
Huh. Yeah, sounds about right.
Someone even suggested staying just over the border in France as a hack. Norway, Iceland, too expensive airport buses, imported goods costing a lot.
Makes sense.
Parts of the U.S., like New York, Cancun, California, were mentioned, and Croatia generated some discussion.
Well, what about Croatia?
Several people felt it's gotten way more expensive recently. They linked it directly to adopting the euro and just, booming tourism. Some even said Split felt pricier than Italy now.
Ouch. That's quite a shift. But even in pricey regions, the sources suggest contrasts, right? Like Athens being cheaper than the Greek islands.
Exactly. You can still find pockets of value sometimes. So, okay, we've got some ideas on where to go, but getting there. Flights are usually the biggest single cost. Let's dig into hacking those fares based on your sources.
All right, flight hacks. Yeah, this part of the material had some really interesting, maybe slightly controversial tips, like starting with the incognito mode thing.
Ah, yes, the classic secret agent booking method. The theory, as presented in your source, is that searching in incognito or private browsing stops websites tracking you with cookies.
So they don't hike the price because they see you're interested.
That's the idea. By appearing as a new visitor each time, maybe you get a lower price. The source suggested closing and reopening windows, too, for a clean slate.
Well, it's easy enough to try. Can't hurt, I guess.
Exactly. Another key tip, don't just use one flight search engine. Skyscanner is popular, sure, but the source says definitely check others like Momondo, which it claims can sometimes be cheaper, JetRadar for budget airlines, and Google Flights.
Right. Spread your bets. No single site is always the winner.
And forget those myths about, like, booking on a Tuesday at 3 p.m. being magically cheapest. What is useful, according to the source, is using the tools properly. Skyscanner's whole month, or cheapest month view.
Ah, yeah, to see the price variations visually.
Exactly. If you have flexibility on dates, that's where you can really find savings.
Makes sense. Flexibility is huge. Okay, what about points? Travel rewards cards came up.
They did. The Chase Sapphire Preferred was mentioned as a good starting point. Big sign-up bonus, points for flights, travel insurance, no foreign transaction fees.
That last one is key if you're booking international flights or spending abroad.
Crucial. And the source rightly emphasizes, use it for everyday stuff, but pay it off every month. Otherwise, interest eats up any savings you made. You want free points, not expensive debt.
Good advice. Now, budget airlines. They're mentioned a lot. Ryanair, EasyJet in Europe, AirAsia.
Yeah, they definitely open up routes cheaply, but, it's a trade-off.
Uh-huh.
Less legroom, pay for everything, extra bags, food, seat selection.
Right. But sometimes the price difference is massive.
It can be.
Mhm.
A simple tip was just follow them on social media for deals. And then there's the holy grail, error fares.
Ah, the mistake fares.
Yeah, genuine glitches where airlines price flights incredibly low by accident. Sites like Airfare Watchdog, Kiwi.com deals. Sequel Flying apparently track these. Or you might just spot a crazy low price using those month view searches.
Okay, now for the more advanced stuff. Booking connecting flights yourself to create a layover.
Right. This is where you book, say, London to Bangkok, and then Bangkok to Sydney as separate tickets, maybe on different airlines, giving yourself a few days in Bangkok. See two places for roughly one flight price. Skyscanner's multi-city tool can help plan it.
Sounds clever, but risky. What if the first flight is delayed?
Exactly. That's the crucial warning in the source. Do not book tight connections this way yourself. If flight 1 is late, you just lose flight 2. Unless you use a service like Kiwi.com that specifically offers a guarantee covering delays and missed connections when you book these self-connect itineraries through them.
Ah, okay. So they take on some of that risk.
They do. The source had an example.
Okay.
Someone saved over $400 and got a 5-day Hawaii stopover by booking separate legs this way. But again, that guarantee is key if connections are close.
Got it. And Kiwi.com came up again, didn't it, for finding the cheapest place to fly to?
Yeah, their search lets you put in your departure city and just see where the cheapest flights go anywhere. Great for spontaneous trips. And again, their strength is mixing and matching airlines, including budget ones that other search engines might miss.
Finding those non-obvious routes.
Exactly, with that guarantee smoothing things over. The example was saving like $170 on Washington to Rome by letting Kiwi piece together flights from different airlines.
Okay, now for the really controversial one, hidden city ticketing.
Uh-oh. Yes, the skip lag strategy.
Explain that again. You book a flight like, say, New York to Chicago to LA, but you only want to go to Chicago, so you just get off.
That's the idea. You book a ticket with a layover in the city you actually want to visit and skip the final leg because it's somehow cheaper than booking directly to Chicago. Skiplagged is the site known for finding these.
But the source flags this as super risky, right?
Absolutely. Use at your own risk was the clear message. Big problems. Check bags will go to the final destination on your ticket, not your layover city.
Right, so carry on only.
Definitely. You might not even be allowed off the plane at the layover. And airlines really hate this. They can cancel your frequent flyer miles, maybe even ban you if they catch you doing it repeatedly.
And the comments in your source added more warnings too, didn't they? Like skipping one leg cancels all subsequent flights on that booking.
Yes, crucial point. And unexpected schedule changes could totally mess up your plan if the layover city changes. It sounds like a real gamble.
Yeah, maybe not worth the stress unless you're really aware of all the potential downsides.
Agreed. Safer tips mentioned. Check smaller, local airlines that might not be on the big search sites. Always double-check the price directly on the airline's own website.
Good practice.
And for budget airlines, if you know your dates, book early. Those fares tend to go up, not down, closer to the time.
Okay. And the currency thing, paying in a different currency.
Yeah, sometimes booking on the airline's foreign website in the local currency can be cheaper, but only if your credit card has no foreign transaction fees. Otherwise, the fees wipe out the savings, like the Chase card mentioned earlier.
Gotcha. And a final warning from the comments was about booking through third-party sites versus directly with the airline.
Big one. Lots of comments advise booking direct or with a trusted agent. People shared stories about terrible customer service, hidden fees, and huge hassles trying to change flights booked via some third-party sites like Expedia or Orbitz when things went wrong.
Okay, good heads up. So we've found a destination, we've hopefully booked a cheap flight. Now, keeping costs down on the ground, food seems like a huge lever here.
Massive. And this section in your sources was great. It kicked off quoting Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, I love Bourdain. What was the quote?
He called street food the salvation of the human race.
Ah, strong words. But the source backs it up, right? Why is street food so good for budget travel?
Well, multiple reasons. According to your material, it's authentic, it's delicious, it gives you real insight into the local culture, is where the locals eat. Big clue there, follow the crowds, and of course it's usually incredibly cheap.
Okay, but the safety question always comes up. What did the source say about that?
It tackled it directly. Acknowledged that, yes, statistically, maybe there's a slightly higher risk in some places compared to a sanitized chain restaurant. But it argued that serious food poisoning is unlikely if you use common sense.
Common sense like?
Follow the locals. Busy stalls mean high turnover and fresh ingredients. Observe the cleanliness, discreetly. Watch them cook your food fresh.
Makes sense.
The source even suggested that some Western fears are maybe a bit overblown, fueled by overdramatic sensationalism.
Yeah.
And made the point that, look, you can get sick anywhere. Sometimes your stomach just needs to adjust to new spices or ingredients. It's kind of, well,
part of the adventure.
that's how the source framed it. A brave take, maybe, but relatable if you've traveled a bit.
True. Okay, besides brave street food adventures, what else? Cooking?
Big one. Especially in expensive regions like, say, Scandinavia or much of Europe. If your accommodation has a kitchen hostel, Airbnb, apartment cooking some meals yourself is a major money saver.
Right. The source had that food cost power ranking idea.
Yeah, level 5 being super cheap like Southeast Asia, where street food is so good and affordable, cooking might not even save you much money or hassle. Level 1, super expensive like Scandinavia, where cooking becomes, and I quote, literally essential for budget travelers.
Literally essential. Okay, any other food tips?
Yep, quite a few practical ones. Finding happy hours or daily deals. Hitting local markets for cheap produce, bread, cheese, perfect for picnics or packed lunches.
Smart. Picnic lunches save a fortune.
Totally. Using free breakfasts if your accommodation offers them. Looking into work exchange things where meals might be included. There was an anecdote about that in Portugal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, volunteering for a bit in exchange for room and board. Also, just carrying some travel snacks so you're not forced to buy something expensive when hunger strikes suddenly.
Always have snacks. That's just life advice.
Is it just? And then, for the bold, the source actually suggested asking restaurants or bars if they need a hand for an hour in exchange for a meal or drinks.
Wow, okay. That takes some guts. A real budget traveler move.
Definitely. But the source also balanced all the saving advice with a reminder to occasionally splurge.
Ah, the treat self moment.
Exactly. Don't just eat cheap noodles. If there's a special local dish or restaurant you want to try, factor it in. The example given was a $50 Thai meal. Expensive for Thailand, but totally worth it for the experience.
It's about balance, strategic savings, so you can have those memorable experiences.
Precisely.
Okay, so wrapping up quickly. Your sources touched on a few other practical points for budget travel too, right? Safety.
Yeah. Reinforced that many popular budget regions like Southeast Asia are generally very safe, even for solo travelers. But, standard precautions against petty theft apply. Be aware of specific local scams, motorbike rentals, tuk-tuk drivers trying to take you to commission-paying shops, and travel insurance was strongly recommended.
Always good advice. Getting around.
Just a reminder that it's not all about flights. Cheap buses, vans are common, though comfort varies. Trains were available. Ride-sharing apps like Grab in Asia. Car rental usually isn't budget-friendly, though hitchhiking was mentioned as an option in some areas.
Right, and timing.
Hugely important. The cheapest or best time varies massively by region and season. Rainy versus dry season, shoulder seasons, etc. Worth researching.
And finally, just hammering home that point about using multiple booking sites, not just for flights, but accommodation too.
Yep. Mention checking Hostel World, Agoda, Booking.com alongside the flight sites. cast a wide net.
Okay. So, pulling all this together from your sources, it really paints a picture of budget travel not being about, like, constant deprivation.
Not at all. It's more about being strategic, making informed choices,
Yeah.
where you go, how you book your travel, how you approach food, seeing it as culture and a place to save.
Yeah, the sources definitely show there's a world of affordable options out there if you're willing to look beyond the obvious and use a bit of ingenuity.
Absolutely. It's empowering, really.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Given everything we've discussed, how subjective cheap is, how much depends on currency, local economies, even your personal style, remember that Reddit user skiing the Balkans and sleeping in their car?
Ah, yeah. Hardcore budget style.
Right. So the question is, how much of successful budget travel is really about finding inherently cheap places versus how much is it about your own creativity, your resourcefulness, and your willingness to just experience the world a little differently?
Something to think about as you plan your next affordable adventure.